Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast, where every day we take a deep dive into the world of technology and explore the innovations that are shaping our lives. And today I'm very excited to have a very special guest on the show. Her name is Megan Clarken. She's the CEO of Criteo, a global leader in Adtech. And she has an inspiring story, which began as a woman with no college degree, progressing towards becoming an Olympic athlete, and now the CEO of a leading tech company. And under her leadership, Criteo has been committed to creating more inclusive work environments and also supporting diversity initiatives. So I've invited her on the podcast today to discuss the importance of diversity and inclusion in the tech industry, the challenges of maintaining progress in times of uncertainty, and also Megan's inspiring origin story to becoming the CEO of Criteo. I will also be talking about the shortcomings of quick fix DEI initiatives. We've all seen them, and the need for a longer term commitment to inclusivity. I will also talk about the journey to achieving pay parity and the challenges that their company has faced, and the strategies Criteo uses to ensure a diverse slate of candidates for all positions and the obstacles they may have faced building a strong talent pipeline along the way. But it's much bigger than that, because Criteo's innovative Open Path program is also aimed at creating opportunities for students from underprivileged and non-traditional educational backgrounds, which is a topic I'm very passionate about also. So join me and Megan today as we explore the world of tech through the lens of diversity and inclusion. So buckle up and hold on tight, because today it's time for me to beam your ears to Miami, where Megan Clarken, CEO of Criteo, is waiting to share her story in an incredibly thought-provoking conversation. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Megan. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
My name's Megan Clarken. I am the CEO of Criteo. And Criteo is one of the biggest Adtech companies, independent Adtech companies in the world. We focus on commerce media, in other words, connecting people or products to people. And my role here, I've been here for 3 years, is to lead a transformation of the company from where it was a few years ago as a retargeting company to a company that is really focused on helping media owners, retailers, agencies, and brands, of course, as I said before, connect products to people. It's an exciting place, and I'm enjoying it.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. One of the reasons I record this show every single day is to learn more about how technology is transforming our lives, businesses, and even world. But I'm also fascinated and intrigued by the human stories behind it. So there's a bit of a tradition on here where I always ask my guests to share their origin story. And when I did a little research on you, boy, do you have a great story too. So can you share your personal origin story from being a woman without a college degree to becoming an Olympic athlete and eventually the CEO of a leading ad tech company? Because it sounds like a book or maybe even Netflix movie right there, doesn't
it? with one viewer. No, look, it is an interesting one. Firstly, if you can tell by my accent, I'm a New Zealander. I grew up in Auckland, New Zealand, and as you said, in my youth, I was an athlete at an Olympic level. And that's all I really cared about. I wasn't thinking about my career at the time. School was just, you had to go there. I was most interested in training and becoming a gold medalist at the Olympics. And so I didn't finish high school. I went to work very early. I think I was working from about 16 years old. And then tragedy hit. I had an serious accident to my left knee, which is my jumping knee. And if anybody out there is a long jumper, they'll know that you can't switch from one leg to the other. It's like changing a hand that you write with. So my career finished at the ripe old age of around about 20. So from there, I had to find a career, I guess, without that college education. And I was fortunate enough to have, after I left school, had gone into tech. So I started in tech. I was a computer operator for many years in some large organizations. And so I had that tech background. But in my early 30s, I moved from New Zealand to Australia. I was working for Air New Zealand at the time, and I got picked up by MSN in the late 90s. And so that was the start, I guess, of a serious career and my move into digital media. And from there, I got picked up by Nielsen, and I went from digital media, I guess, to digital measurement. And I moved from Australia to the US with Nielsen at that point. And I expanded. I guess I sorted out digital measurement for Nielsen, and then expanded into broader media measurement, and then took on a global role. I ended up at Nielsen for 15 years as their chief commercial officer and president of Nielsen Global Media before I left 3 years ago and came across to Criteo. So I guess what I always find for me personally interesting through my journey is that I always say my career started way back when I started athletics, because the discipline that it takes to train, to prepare yourself for a date that is somewhat in the future, to take the highs and lows, and then to utilize a team around you that you need to be able to be successful, are all of the things that, I learned to deal with as a teenager, juggling priorities. And that's what I bring to my job today. So my journey started back then and is still extremely relevant today. But yeah, it's an interesting road to get here, no doubt.
Yeah, it really is. It's such a powerful story. And I love that how you were saying the discipline that you had back then has prepared you for that moment when the worlds of advertising and tech would collide for you. And one of the reasons I always ask that question as well is I've spoke to nearly 2,400 different people here in the tech industry. No, very few set out to say, yeah, I want to work in the tech industry. It's almost like the universe gives us all a little nudge in the right direction sometimes, isn't it?
It's exactly right. I mean, you know, anybody starting out their career now, I guess there is some stat out there that says that X percentage of people that are in university today studying for a career, that career may not exist by the time they get out because the world is changing so quickly. So as long as you're prepared for those basic disciplines, which I talked through before, and that you can deal with ambiguity and be ambidextrous and, work in any environment, you'll be successful, I think.
And I suspect that was just one of the many challenges you would face in your career. And anybody looking from the outside, looking in at the world of tech, it does have a certain reputation. So as a woman leader in the male-dominated industry, can you tell me more about how you've prioritised implementing programs that bolster young women and people of colour into leadership roles? And how has your background influenced your approach to promoting inclusivity within the company?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have a passion for social change. I guess my background speaks volumes in terms of the twists and turns that I've had along the way. And so I draw on a lifetime of experience. There's no hiding the fact that as a female, as a member of the LGBT community, somebody who didn't finish high school in this environment, all of those things carry a burden of discrimination. And boy, have I seen it over the years. So, my vow here is to make sure that it doesn't happen to others. So I come from a very personal conviction to not have others endure some of the things that I have over the years, and that puts me in a great position to lead from a place of understanding diversity and equality and inclusion. I'm a big advocate for change, and I always believe in a mantra that says, think globally and act locally. And when you put that on others, the burden of change becomes not a massive one, but something that's manageable. And if we all thought like that, if we all thought globally, but did something every day, or did something that we have the power to do, effort would feel less, but the results would be massive. Where I am in my role, I have a privileged position of being able to think globally and often act globally. Whether or not it's through a podcast like you, Neil, and speaking about these things publicly, or standing up on stage and speaking about them, or implementing programs that make a difference. And I've implemented programs at Nielsen that have changed US media, and I'm incredibly proud of those. And I've implemented, and the team are implementing programs at Criteo that make us a better place to work and make our people enjoy being there, that they can come to the office with their authentic self and they know that there's no discrimination. That doesn't go unnoticed and doesn't go stopped, certainly through my eyes. So we have many programs in place across the organization, from programs that focus on gender parity, programs that focus on inclusion. We have half of our Criteo population are members of employee resource groups, or ERGs, which is a massive contribution of our people to actually lean in and focus on the areas of welfare, human welfare, the planet, that really resonate with them. And I'm incredibly proud of the fact that that Criteos have stood up to the challenge and want to lean in and be involved. I call it our culture. It is a culture of integration. It is a culture of inclusion, and it is a culture that wants to drive change. And so the programs that we bring in are programs that are well suited to the company. They are about thinking globally and acting locally, and they're embraced by the people, which makes the biggest difference.
And I think the good news is that over the last few years, companies have committed to creating more inclusive working environments and inclusive leadership teams. And I would also say, especially in the tech and marketing industry, I think there's a huge realization around the importance of diversity of thought when solving problems or attempting to serve a diverse audience. But sadly, when things get tough, we begin to see progress diminish again. So why do you think this is, and what should businesses be doing differently?
Yeah, that's unfortunately, that has happened in the last 12 months. And, I almost look at this, Neil, and go, it was always going to happen, because what we were experiencing, for good or for bad, was more of a quick fix mentality to this than a cultural, structural change. And corporations are under a lot of pressure. I run a public company. I know that every 3 months I have to stand up in front of my shareholders and show progress. And when push comes to shove, or the macro economy starts wobbling, or things happen that mean that you have to dig in and change course within your business, you're looking for the things that aren't giving you that immediate progress. And unfortunately, DEI activities are there to deal with a systemic problem, a problem of discrimination that's been with us for centuries, that can't be changed in 3 months. So I think the notion of having sort of this immediate fix mentality, hiring a person in the form of a chief diversity officer, making it their job to implement change, and then being shocked or unable to come to the party when they come back for funding, which is what they will do, that costs money to change. And when businesses get tight, this gets shut down, and that's exactly what we saw. So I think we need to approach it differently. I think having KPIs in place inside of an organization is important, but I do think there's some real basic, obvious changes that organizations have to make that don't need a million KPIs to tell you that you're on the right track. For instance, pay parity. there's one KPI, which is women paid the same as men. Just, do that one first. And that's a massive move for corporations, but it costs money. But we have to commit to those things, because if we don't, we're not going to implement the change that's needed. I also think organizations have to make sure that they find ways to demonstrate business impact, show business impact, without it needing to, where it's meaningful and can show the benefits strategically and over a period of time. So I think more of that has to happen. This needs to be seen as a long-term commitment by corporations, as opposed to a quick fix to tick a box or to please the street. Lots to do there. I think we've taken a couple of steps back, but we need to stand up and start moving forward again quickly.
And I'm curious, as a CEO who is passionate and committed to making these changes and making the workplace better, more inclusive, etc., what are some of the challenges that you and your company faces in attracting and hiring diverse talent? And how do you work towards overcoming these obstacles to build that more inclusive workforce?
Yeah, look, hiring is hard. It's hard to get a diverse slate. We always start with, and most companies will say the same, they try to strive to make sure that when they're looking for the right candidate, they've got a diverse slate. And it's hard to get that slate to start with. And then from there, as long as you have a diverse slate, you're looking for the best person. All of these things, of course, need tools in place to make sure that you get the diverse slate, and training in place to make sure those who are interviewing are not being biased by what they see, or not using biased language or things that impair your ability to find a diverse candidate who's right for the role. I think most importantly, just sort of going back to the question beforehand, if you are passionate and you are deploying programs and a culture that promotes diversity and inclusion inside the organization, it will attract, is the best way to attract a diverse slate. People hear about it and they want to be part of it. And that's something that Criteo has experienced, is that people feel excited to want to come and work for a company that really does take this seriously. Going back to the pay parity point, we've had pay parity in place now. This will be the third year we've had this in place. And therefore, if you're a female candidate, that's really attractive. So now you're starting to get people that come towards you, as opposed to you having to find ways to bring them there. But it's an ongoing effort, and it doesn't just stop with that. We have partnerships in place with diversity focus groups, with universities, with colleges who are looking at or focusing on diverse students coming out of school, to make sure that at all times we can try to make sure our pipeline has got great candidates in there that are diverse. So it's an ongoing effort, and it does have to have focus. It's not something that you can take your eye off.
And one of the big reasons that I invited you on the podcast today was when I was researching this topic and how it was impacting the tech industry. I read about Criteo's Open Path program and how you're aiming to create opportunities for students from underprivileged or non-traditional educational backgrounds. And after browsing through dozens of tabs, this felt an incredibly breath of fresh air to me. So for anyone that's not heard about this, can I ask you just offer a bit of an overview on that Open Path program?
Sure. Well, Open Path, we put this in place because we recognize that not every student is given the same opportunity. And we believe that it's imperative to level the playing field and make sure that everybody has access to employment. So Open Path is a 12-month training program where candidates, they get access to employment through a strong internal support system, which includes things like onboarding, mentorship, training, and upskilling. We're currently piloting the program and partnering with the ADA Tech School, we plan to extend and scale our partnership with other organizations throughout schools and across the UK, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So we want to lock and load this, make sure it tests out well, and then take it from there. Again, it's an act local, think global approach to making sure that we can bring in underprivileged students into the workforce.
I believe you've seen a lot of benefits at Criteo for implementing DEI programs, such as your top talent program as well. So can you share a little bit more about the program and ultimately the impact it's had on your organization? Because that's where the magic happens, isn't it?
Yeah, look, top talent is fun, actually. We launched it in 2021, I think, and it's an 8-month program. We handpick Criteos to be selected into these we have 2 programs running, one for more senior candidates and one for those who are in their early career. And it's full of workshops and coaching and all of the things that you would want to have if you're really thinking through where you want to be in the future at Criteo, or just as importantly, somewhere else. I mean, we know that we're not going to, while we would love to have our people with us forever, at some point they're going to move in their careers. And we take pride in giving them the tools and experience to be able to really pursue their dreams and where they want to go next. And so it's a rich program that creates leadership opportunity. It builds leadership skills. It gives them opportunities within the organization. They become a team of people who, the leadership team tend to fight over to see whether or not they can get them on their teams at some point in time. And it creates a network amongst them to continue on the conversation after the program's finished. And it's been wildly successful. There's, I don't have stats on me, but the stats of those who have moved through the program and have experienced promotions, have moved into other teams, who have gone on to bigger programs within Criteo, are very, very high. And so we continue to try to launch things like this to keep our people engaged, to grow their careers, and as I said before, groom them for their career, a longer career with us or with somebody else. It's a great talent program to have in place.
It really is, and I would imagine that you've seen a lot of problems and had to overcome many, many challenges and obstacles throughout your career to get where you are now. And looking back at how far, not only yourself, but how far society has progressed as well, what makes you optimistic about the future? And what role do you see technology playing in building a more diverse and inclusive workplace?
Sometimes, you see things progress and then you see things go a few steps back. It's a really interesting world that we live in. With what's going on across the world at the moment. What I'm really optimistic about and feel incredibly encouraged about is that change and this demand for change and to do the right thing is driven by the workforce. And I was going to say that, the younger folk, the average age of a Criteo is, I think, 31.
Yeah.
So to me, it's a young workforce, and they demand it. So whatever's going on around the globe, if something happens, then the next day my email box is bombarded with, hey, what are you going to do about it? And what are you going to say about it? And when are you going to go public on this issue? And, what are you doing to, protect Criteos from? So that is what is really encouraging now and incredibly optimistic about where they take this. A couple of years ago, we have an International Women's Day where we have a lot of external people come in and speak. And we brought in 2 young women that are leading the charge when it comes to the climate change and standing outside of the different global summits that are happening to make sure that they get themselves heard, and really taking on that mantle on behalf of young people, and we had them come in and talk to the organization. And it's that sort of thing that you can see Criteo's eyes light up. And so I'm incredibly encouraged by that. I think, again, they demand that we continue these programs, that we do the right thing, that we keep progressing. They demand that change. They do think globally and act locally. It's not something I have to continue to say. It is something that has been taken on board. And the key word there is act. Don't just talk about it, but do something about it. If we all do something about it, change will happen. And then I think I'm optimistic because as long as there are leaders that are building that culture within an organization, then the new leaders coming through, the top talent that is coming through, will take up that baton. Yeah. And as an athlete, it really resonates with me that, one passes to the next. And I know from what I see within my own organization that the culture we have in place is a culture of change, is a culture of integrity. And it's a culture that the next leader who comes after me will pick up that baton and continue to run after those things that we all strive to have. So that's why I'm optimistic.
And I think that's a beautiful moment to end on, a great metaphor to highlight that message as well. And I can't thank you enough for investing your time to share some of your experiences around such an important topic right now. And I'm going to see if there's something we can do for you. We started today talking about your origin story and how the universe gives us all a little nudge in the right direction. So some of the biggest names in business, VC funding or tech have either been guests or listened to this podcast. So if I was to ask you, is there a person you'd love to have a private breakfast or lunch with? Who would it be and why? Because he or she might just hear this, and let's see what we can manifest together today.
Well, look, I think you have interviewed William Shatner, right?
Yes, many years ago, yeah.
And look, as a techie, who would not point out William Shatner? I think the man has taken us all into outer space. We've all lived our dreams through those stories, and he himself has taken himself most recently back into space, and full circle. I just love it. He's not probably available to have brekkie with me, but I'm happy to at any time buy him a bagel and a coffee and thank him for what he's given us.
Wow, absolutely love that. Well, we'll throw that out into the ether. Let's see what we can sort there. But before I let you go, for anyone listening, just wanting to find out more information about the programs we've talked about, your work at Criteo, how they can stay up to speed with anything, or even contact your team if it's a business leader wanting to learn more about how you've done this, what's the best starting point for everything?
Yes, you can find us on Criteo.com. You can follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. And then if you want to reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn as well. So Megan Clarken on LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to any one of us.
Well, I think at the moment, every person listening, wherever they are in the world and whatever industry they're in, we're all going through a period of uncertainty, whether it be economic and the climate and politically. There's so much going on. And what I love about what you're doing here is proving that inclusivity can create a more resilient company, both culturally and practically. Incredibly inspiring. And a big thank you for sharing your story today.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks for having me. It's great.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of the Tech Talks Daily podcast, where we had the pleasure of talking to Megan Clarken there, CEO of Criteo. And I, for one, have learned so much about Megan's inspiring journey from being an Olympic athlete to working in the tech industry and becoming the CEO of Criteo, as we mentioned there. And I think during our conversation, Megan shared valuable insights around how her personal conviction to promote diversity and inclusivity in the tech industry and drawing on her own experiences of discrimination is so powerful. And I think diving into the challenges of implementing diversity, equity, inclusion in corporations is so important, including that pressure for immediate progress and the need for a longer-term commitment. But of course, it's not all about problems. Megan expressed optimism about the future of diversity and inclusion in the workplace, driven by the demands of a younger workforce. And I think that was the gold moment in the conversation. This is not just about Megan talking about what she wants to achieve and what she wants to lead. It's coming directly from the workforce, and I think that is a huge step forward too. So as we wrap up this episode, let's just take a moment to reflect on the valuable lessons we've learned from Megan today. The importance of diversity and inclusion in the tech industry cannot be overstated, but it does take continuous effort, commitment, and innovation to create that meaningful change we all want to see in the world. So thanks for joining me today on Tech Talks Daily. I hope you enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation with Megan today. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Maybe you have different opinions. Maybe you have different successes and failures around this topic. Whatever it is, email me now, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, @NeilC. We can keep this conversation going. But that's it for today. So as we continue to explore the world of technology and its powerful impact on our lives, stay curious, keep learning, and until next time, don't be a stranger.